I'm Ashley Richard with the Kincardine District Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Terralyn Goldbeck with the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce.
We're here today to present the all-candidate meeting for the Huron-Bruce riding for the federal election here in 2021.
Thank you for joining us.
The candidates for the riding of Huron-Bruce are
Jan Johnstone, New Democratic Party.
Ben Lobb, Conservative Party of Canada.
James Rice, Liberal Party of Canada.
Justin L. Smith, Independent.
Jack Stecko, People's Party of Canada. Our airing format, each candidate has 2 minutes maximum for their introduction. Each question will be approximately 30 seconds. Each candidate has 1 minute to respond to the question. Each candidate has a 2-minute maximum closing statement.
Questions were received for this pre-filmed event via email from our constituents.
Thank you to the Saugeen Shores Chamber and the Kincardine District Chamber for organizing this all candidates debate. My name is Jan Johnstone and I'm your NDP candidate. My family and I have lived in Huron-Bruce for over 30 years and I live in the town of Kincardine. My husband Gord worked for Bruce Power and we have 3 girls. My Scottish heritage has served me well and I am on the executive of the Kincardine Scottish Festival and Highland Games, an award-winning festival that's lasted 3 days and welcomes thousands of visitors from all over North America. As a social worker, I have worked in both Huron and Bruce counties in child welfare, hospital, and community-based mental health care, community development in the not-for-profit sector, and of course, the business improvement with the private sector. My passion for public education grows from my dedication to service to others. I am an elected school board trustee with over 20 years experience and am the vice chair of the Blue Water District School Board. We are responsible for a yearly budget of over $200 million and are the second largest employer in Huron-Bruce. Many people know me as an ardent supporter of public education. I've worked with parents, community leaders, education partners, and students because I believe deeply that all children, regardless of their background, deserve a chance to succeed in life. Overall, I am dedicated my life to improving the lives of those who call Huron-Bruce home, and I'm ready to take that dedication to Ottawa. It's time to do better. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP team are ready to lead us forward together with a bold new universal program that meet the needs of Canadians and benefit rural communities. The heart of our platform is focused on people, making life more affordable and building a better future for all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ben Lobb, and I'm the Conservative candidate for the riding of Huron-Bruce. I'd like to thank the Kincardine and Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight's debate. I would like to congratulate all candidates and thank everyone for watching at home. A new Conservative government will work with Canadians to build a better, more prosperous Canada. We will invest in rural infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, bridges, community centers, and high-speed internet for every household by 2025. We will take immediate action to help the hardest hit sectors. We'll rebuild Main Street by assisting small business and providing incentives to invest in, rebuild, and start new businesses. We'll create opportunities in all sectors of the economy and all parts of the country. It is a plan to secure Canada's recovery from the pandemic, to get the economy back on track, to bring jobs back, and to get spending under control, to tackle high prices, especially home prices, and to fight inflation, to get serious about the mental health crisis in our country, increase health transfers to the provinces so they can deliver the vital frontline healthcare services, secure our independence from other countries for things we need in emergency, and strong support for nuclear energy, medical isotopes, and new innovations in small modular reactors. I look forward to tonight's debate. On September 20th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Rice, your Liberal candidate, running to be your Member of Parliament here in Huron-Bruce. I'm a proud part of Team Trudeau and the Liberal team, but I'm thrilled to be here to contrast ideas to how I will represent you in Parliament. The pandemic's not over yet, but I'm thrilled that we're in a place where we're able to go knock on doors, where we're able to meet people, and we're able to have that community connection. A little bit about me. I grew up through the child welfare system, also known as the children's aid system. I lived in many places throughout the riding, and I dealt with many things that come with being a former Crown ward, like poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, things like that. Because of good government programs, my 3 younger sisters and I were pulled out of poverty, and we had a real chance at success. Now I'm a lawyer who works as an assistant Crown attorney doing criminal prosecutions. When I talk about hope and hard work and that better is always possible, I actually mean it. These aren't catchphrases, I know them to be true. And I know the impact that good government policy has on people's lives. It worked for me, and I want it to work for you. On September 20th, vote James Rice to be your Member of Parliament.
My name is Justin Smith, and I was born and raised in Goderich. Well, Huron Haven, just north of Goderich. I have a bachelor's degree in law and justice, and that's what I believe in, the law and justice, as well as freedom. I'm going to just dive right in. As I said, I believe in freedom. Freedom from an overreaching government who is power hungry and wants to spend all the money they can get their hands on. I will advocate to completely remove the carbon tax and any other carbon-based schemes. I will lower personal and business and farm taxes and budgeted subsidies and corporate bailouts. I take your tax money and give it to companies just because. And since we are a rural riding, we have a lot of farmers, hunters, sports, and others who want to use their firearms lawfully and safely, but can't because of illogical fallacies. I would reverse the Order of Council, consolidate all of our firearms laws into one comprehensive piece of legislation with more specific definitions. Licenses would be valid for 10 years, increase magazine capacity, firearms would be classified based only on function and not looks, and ensure that any changes to firearm laws are done with experts and not lobbyists. I would expand our nuclear generating capabilities and prioritize solutions that are actually practical in order to make Canada's air, water, and soil cleaner. This would also include clean drinking water to remote First Nations communities. I would ensure the government respects and follows the Constitution's charter as secondary schools by not giving any federal funding if they have been shown to violate the charter of any of its students or faculty. I would phase out foreign development aid and instead focus our international aid toward emergency humanitarian crises. And coming back to my support of freedom, I am fighting for the freedom from all of the COVID measures that cause so much strife and division because they are unconstitutional. Everyone should have the right to choose what is best for him or her, and I oppose any and all mask, vaccine passport mandates, and lockdowns. If people want to continue life as we've been doing for a year and a half or so, they should be allowed to, the same as those who want life to get back to normal. But again, it should be up to each individual and business, not the government, to decide. The government's role is to protect our rights, not dictate to us. As an independent, you tell me what you want and fight for it, not the other way around.
Hello everyone, my name is Jack Stecko and I'm the People's Party of Canada candidate for Huron Bruce. I just want to thank the Saugeen Shores and Kincardine Chambers of Commerce for hosting this event. I'm 18 years old. I am one of the youngest candidates in Canada, if not the youngest. I graduated in 2021 from St. Anne's, the French immersion program. I'm a passionate hockey player and I feel that this election is too important to not have a People's Party candidate in every riding in Canada. I decided to run because I couldn't just sit on the sidelines and let what's happening in Canada keep happening. The People's Party of Canada is Canada first. No more lockdowns, and we want to protect Canada's future. There is a lack of coverage of the People's Party of Canada, which means you may have never heard of us. And that's simply because the mainstream media is afraid. They're afraid you might like what you hear. The mainstream media, CBC, will be defunded if the People's Party of Canada government wins. Therefore, they will lose funding. Billions of dollars of funding that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals hand them. They will lose that, and they are afraid of that. The People's Party of Canada was created by a man named Maxime Bernier. He's a former Minister of Industry, Minister of State, and Minister of Foreign Affairs. And he is ready to be our next Prime Minister. He founded the People's Party of Canada on 4 main principles: individual freedom, fairness, responsibility, and respect. Maxime stands for what he believes in, and does not flip-flop on issues, like we have seen other leaders do its entire campaign. People's Party of Canada was founded in 2019 as it is one of the newest parties in Canada, and it is already polling higher than Greens and Bloc Québécois federally. The People's Party of Canada is gaining traction and fast. And this is probably because this is Canada's chance to end these restrictions, unnecessary measures against COVID-19, and create a rational response to this pandemic.
Now that we've met our candidates, we will begin the question portion of the event. Each candidate will have a minute to respond to questions. Our first question is, where do you stand on immediate action for climate change, and how does your party propose addressing this issue?
Well, first and foremost, the Conservative Party is really a long ways with our environmental platform. It's as good as any parties out there right now. Aaron O'Toole made the commitment, as well as the party, to meet our 2030 Paris climate target goals, which were set in 2015, and our 30% reduction to 2005. So that's great. That's going to get us in the right direction. Our plan has been verified by a third party, and we can do that. How do we do that? Lowering industrial emissions, getting more renewable natural gas online, carbon capture, vitally important, especially in Western Canada. We're going to invest $3 billion in natural carbon sequesters, really make an investment in that. So wetlands, grasslands, woodlots, forests, crops, etc. It's going to go a long ways. As well, we're going to ban plastic exports. We think Canadians want that. So our plan is a good plan on environment.
So climate change requires immediate action. We are in a climate crisis, and we need to treat the climate crisis the same way we've treated the COVID-19 crisis. The Liberal Party has the best plan to combat climate change. We do this through implementing a price on pollution, which several Conservative governments have fought against, all the way up to the Supreme Court, which determined it was constitutional. We've committed to cutting emissions by 36% by 2030 and net zero by 2050. The Conservatives would bring us back to Stephen Harper's emissions targets, which far miss the mark and don't protect our planet for generations to come, like our plan does. Leading climate scientists have called the Liberal plan the best one going forward, whereas the NDP and Conservative plans are not. The former leader of the NDP, Tom Mulcair, and the former leader of the BC Greens have also endorsed our plan. It's clear that the Liberal Party has the best plan by putting a price on pollution, investing in green jobs, and cutting our emissions.
Canada is already looking after the planet, and there is realistically nothing we can do to change the climate. We are already carbon neutral and do what we can to manage our waste and recycling effectively, but there is always room for improvement. Resources and technology already exist, we just need to use them more effectively. Canada produces just over 1% of the global emissions, and bringing that 0% will not change the habits of the world's worst polluters. Locally, we can plant more trees in urban areas to increase the amount of shade, which would decrease the temperature in those areas in summer. We could also plant trees to create more wood blocks, preventing on-land erosion. And we can also stop raw sewage dumping from the areas that are still doing it. While these things won't change the climate, they will help us locally, even if only a little.
Well, I stand strong with my party on this issue. We must reject alarmism and focus on concrete improvements. Reject the billions of dollars of spending spent at home and abroad to fight climate change. Climate change alarmism is based on flawed models that have consistently failed at correctly predicting the future. None of the catalytic predictions that have been made about the climate since the 1970s have come true. None of them. No new ice age, no steadily warming in direct relation with increases of CO2 levels, no disappearance in polar ice caps, no exceptional rise in ocean levels, and no abnormal increase in catastrophic weather events, and no widespread crop failure. The EPC will withdraw from the Paris Accord and abandon unrealistic greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. We will stop spending billions of dollars to developing countries to help them reduce emissions. And we will abolish the carbon tax, the liberal carbon tax that is costing Canadians billions of dollars. It is unrealistic and it is not fair to Canadians.
Well, the NDP has a good detailed plan to fight climate crisis and win. The climate crisis is absolutely putting everything we value at risk. First of all, the Conservatives deny that climate crisis is real, and Liberals act like it's not real. Trudeau likes to talk a lot, but doesn't act. We plan to cut emissions by more than half and meet the 1.5 degree target, and scientists say is necessary to prevent this catastrophe. We need to make big polluters pay their fair share, and carbon pricing is just one tool in the fight against climate change. We plan to create hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, invest in clean energy, energy-efficient, affordable homes, electric transit, zero-emission vehicles, and retrofit buildings right across the country. Canada is the only G7 country whose emissions have gone up since the Paris Agreement. Canada has never met a single emissions reduction target.
Our second question is, where do you stand on income inequity, and how does your party propose addressing this issue?
So of course, income inequality is a big problem in Canada. The Liberal government has taken concrete steps to address these shortfalls and build the middle class. And that is our plan, to build the middle class. So some of the programs we brought in that demonstrate this are the top-ups to the Canada Child Benefit, are the old age security enhancements, the first permanent increase to old age security since 1973. We're also limiting interest on student loans, doubling Canada's student grant, and bringing in a national housing strategy, something that will be truly transformative to make sure that people have a fair shot at owning their home and finding affordable rental housing. For all those reasons and all those ways, the Liberal Party is committed to lessening income inequality in Canada and taking real action to improve people's lives.
There is definitely a noticeable difference between the income of Canadians from those who are struggling from paycheck to paycheck up to the ultra-rich and everyone in between. This is something that will always happen in a free society because of several reasons. The most basic of which is that it can't be expected that an engineer at Hydro and a cashier make the same wage. If all things are equal, there would still be an inequality because of personal differences. What we can do to alleviate some of the inequality is to ensure that more people have more money at the end of the day in terms of fewer and lower taxes, and focus on opportunities for better training or retraining so that people can move up the ladder, so to speak. Other options, like raising minimum wage, only raises the cost of living and reduces the number of jobs available, making more of a gap in terms of income inequity. We need to focus on what will work permanently, not on what sounds nice.
Well, income inequity disappears when we have a low unemployment rate. Now is the time to get everyone back to work as quickly as possible, as we can move on from COVID measures put in place by the Liberal government federally and the Conservatives provincially, both the Liberals and Conservatives. In 2020 to 2021, the Liberals recorded $354 billion deficit, and Canada's net debt surpassed $1 trillion, or 1,000 billion, for the first time, and this debt will keep climbing. Debt and deficits are just deferred taxes on our children and our grandchildren in this country. And in order to buy votes, Aaron O'Toole was promising more billions in spending and targeted tax measures funded by borrowed money, just like the Liberals. He said it would take a decade for the Conservative government to balance the budget, which means at least 3 mandates. The People's Party of Canada will do that in 1 mandate. We will get rid of the deficit in the first mandate, allowing us to reduce taxes for families and ensure higher incomes for all Canadian families.
Well, we know Liberals and Conservatives chose to make life easier for the wealthiest, while ordinary Canadians have struggled just to get by. People are working harder than ever, but feel like the system is rigged. They can't get ahead. And of course, the pandemic has only made things worse. And you know what? It's just not even about finances. There's long hours, 2 or 3 jobs, less time with families, high levels of stress, health problems. Costs are going up, but paychecks aren't. So we need a fair taxation system that actually invests in services people need. We're going to ensure the ultra-rich and big corporations pay their fair share. We're going to get rid of tax loopholes for the richest and big corporations, and we're going to get tough on tax evasion and tax avoidance. We plan to help working people by raising the federal minimum wage, going from 15 to 20 within our first mandate, fighting better working conditions, have sick leave for all, and of course, childcare, universal pharmacare, and create 500,000 affordable homes.
Well, this has been an issue for a number of years, and certainly in the last year and a half with pandemic, there's been a tremendous amount of money printed. This has created inflation. Some call it hyperinflation. So we need to stop printing money. Other things the Conservative Party is planning to do is we're going to double the workers' benefit from $2,800 a year to $5,000 a year. We're going to pay it quarterly to help those hardworking Canadians make ends meet and pay bills. We're going to increase the EI6 benefit from 15 weeks to 52 weeks. And we're going to increase the amount that families can claim for childcare. We know how expensive it can be, certainly paying for a mortgage, car payments, and as well paying for childcare. So we're going to allow a family to claim up to $6,000 a year and that will be refundable. So that will make a big difference on families. There's much to do, and we need to continue to working for all Canadians.
Question 3. Where do you stand on dismantling white supremacy and systemic racism? And how does your party propose addressing this issue?
First, we need identity politics, which are creating a social environment that promotes racism and racial discrimination among Canadians. The mainstream media and politicians alike must stop using racial descriptors when it isn't necessary because it incites division and discord. The race of a perpetrator or the victims usually has little or nothing to do with the crime. To imply that it does is to continue fanning flames, so to speak. We never hear about tall people doing things to short people or blondes doing something to brunettes, but we constantly hear white against black against Asian, etc. This was evident during the hijab hoax when Asian men were openly discriminated against by the deceivers and mainstream media that were involved in that incident. Racial discrimination and racism are not problems in Canada except when media-endorsed propaganda and a corrupt government attempt to create national disunity through unethical practices.
Well, firstly, I want to make it clear that Canada is not a systemically racist country. There's no need to dismantle a system that is not systemically racist. As a candidate, I am against any racial inequality in this country. The PPC does not care about anything except for the fact that you are Canadian. It doesn't matter what your skin color, your sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. We can't undo the past. We can't undo the past, and nor should society at large bear the responsibility of dealing with the past. Canada is a beautiful, diverse, and great nation, and is not systemically racist. I am so proud and privileged to be Canadian that calling Canada systemically racist is a completely untrue statement. Of course, if there were a systemically racism problem, I would work to dismantle this. That is not the case.
Trudeau talks a lot about racism, but nothing has changed. Racism is still hurting people across Canada and right here in Huron-Bruce. Nice speeches about diversity are no replacement for concrete actions. No one should be made to feel like they don't belong. Many people in our Muslim community here in Bruce do not feel safe in our streets, and we have seen racist posters that have been put up in Kincardine on several occasions, for example. We need to take action now with a national effort to tackle the rise in hate crimes. We'll confront online hate and white supremacy. We're going to put an end to systemic racism in the RCMP, and we're going to start gathering race-based data to track problems.
I think everybody would agree there's no room in Canada for white supremacy and racism. We need to eradicate this in all forms. Certainly in the last 20, 25 years with the advent of the internet, and as well more recently with social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc., I think things have ramped up quite a bit. So we need to crack down and criminalize any act that is posted online that would incite violence to other people. We need to criminalize that. And as well around hate speech, whether it's online or in-person format. The Human Rights Tribunal obviously plays a huge part, but we need to be very active, criminalize these behaviors, and get it out of Canadian society. It's something I think all Canadians hold dear, that it's free, it's open, we are free to worship, we are free to do the things that are productive in society, and any people that try to incite fear on other Canadians, we need to stop it cold in its tracks.
So white supremacy and systemic racism are scourges in our society. We need to eradicate them, and we need to do it quickly. The Liberal Party recognizes systemic racism exists, first of all. Not all parties and not all candidates can say that, but I can tell you that definitively. I recognize it exists, and my party recognizes it exists. We've taken and we will take more concrete action to rid our society of those things. We're implementing equitable hiring practices in public service, federal public service. So citizens of Canada can see a public service that looks like them and represents them. The major way we're rooting out systemic racism is through improvements to the criminal justice system. Now, as I said, I'm a prosecutor, a Crown attorney, so I'm familiar with the criminal justice system and how it works. We will take action to remove certain mandatory minimum sentences and improve the use of conditional sentences. These are some of the major ways we're tackling systemic racism, and we've made great progress, but it doesn't stop there. We'll keep going.
where do you stand on the treaties Canada and Canadians have with the Indigenous peoples of this land, as well as the 94 calls to action from the DRC, and how does your party propose addressing this issue?
Well, the PPC wants a new relationship with Indigenous people based on mutual respect. A People's Party government will respect our Constitution and our treaties. Many injustices were committed in the past by the Canadian government towards Indigenous people. We cannot rewrite the past, but only seek the best way to live together harmoniously in the future. This relationship must be based on mutual respect and a balanced approach, taking into account the needs of Indigenous population and the interests of Canadian population as a whole. A People's Party of Canada government will explore further avenues to promote establishment of individual property rights on reserves so as to empower its residents and give them increased control over their lives. And as I would like to repeat, a People's Party government will respect our Constitution and our treaties.
Liberals have failed Indigenous people time and again. Canada's relationship with Indigenous people has been deeply troubled. We often talk about reconciliation and promises to respect Indigenous rights, but instead millions of dollars are used to fight First Nation kids in court. We promise clean drinking water and then we deliver delays. Anyway, we need and require a true First Nation to Nation relationship based on reconciliation, recognition of Indigenous rights, and equal funding. Under our plan, we're going to ensure that there's safe housing for all, that we're going to make sure that we do not take kids anymore to court, and that we're actually going to pay that out. It's just horrendous. Anyway, we stand up for reconciliation and meeting the calls to action.
Thank you for the question. Very important question. So absolutely upholding the treaties. I also think we need to speed up the land claims process. I believe it takes much too long, and we need to move forward on that. In regards to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, there can be no reconciliation until these actions are completed. Priority that our government would take would be on actions 71 to 76 that deal with residential schools and righting those wrongs. And for families to truly heal and to forgive and reconcile, the government of the day needs to act strongly on those actions, 71 to 76, to move forward as a nation together with Indigenous Canadians.
So Canada's existing treaties with Indigenous people are part of our Constitution in Section 35. They're part of the fundamental law of Canada, and something that the Liberal Party and myself are committed to uphold. We've treated Indigenous people with a nation-to-nation relationship based on mutual understanding, recognition, and respect. We've lifted 109 long-term boil water advisories, with all the rest remaining having infrastructure built or having a feasibility study done. Every single community affected by a long-term drinking water advisory has had government attention, with most being lifted, and we're confident we will lift them all in another mandate. We've split the ministry responsible for Indigenous peoples into two: the Ministry of Crown and Indigenous Relations and the Ministry of Indigenous Services Canada. This also exemplifies our commitment to do better for Indigenous peoples. We need to do better, and we're going to do better together.
What we need to do is start seeing the Indigenous people first and foremost as Canadians and not a minority or a special interest group. Treaties were signed and agreements made. Those must be honored. We expect Canadians to have clean drinking water. We expect Canadians to have access to compassionate mental and physical health care. We expect Canadians to have hygienic living conditions. Why are we not expecting the same standards for our Indigenous Canadian communities? When Walkerton had their water issue, it was a big deal, and it was corrected quickly with better training and infrastructure improvements, and yet some reserves have been on boil water advisories for decades. We cannot continue to leave them behind or neglect them. They are Canadians, and we should expect them to be treated as equals.
Question 5. Nuclear power is essential for any country looking to reduce carbon emissions as we move towards more sustainable green technology. What support for the nuclear industry can Huron-Bruce expect from the candidate that is elected?
Okay, so I just want to let you know that in order to cut emissions by more than half and meet the 1.5 degree target that scientists say is necessary to prevent catastrophe, the NDP focus is on getting to zero carbon emissions and green technology to get there. Nuclear power energy with close to zero carbon emission needs and will be part of the fight against climate crises. I obviously totally support the nuclear industry. My husband worked at Bruce Power, and I have been part of the Bruce Power tour when Jagmeet Singh, who was a former Ontario NDP deputy leader, came for a visit and tour. So I absolutely see that the nuclear industry is all a part of the fight against climate crises, and it is also part of the green energy resolution.
Thank you for the question. Obviously, the Conservative Party of Canada is a strong supporter of the nuclear energy and the nuclear sector. There's tremendous opportunities. Many Canadians would know that Aaron O'Toole, the leader of our party, also represents a nuclear community in Darlington. We're going to make strategic investments in nuclear, $1 billion in small modular reactor technology and innovation. That's going to be huge. In addition to that, we're also going to create a medical isotope strategy to be a world leader in medical isotopes and work on cancer treatments. And we're committed to that. And we want to be world leaders. We want to maintain our edge on the world stage for medical isotopes. And if we look at what Bruce Power has been able to accomplish in partnership, tremendous innovations. There's great opportunity for nuclear, both in energy and in healthcare.
So the nuclear industry, of course, is huge in our local area. I come from a proud nuclear family. Most of my close family members work at Bruce Power. And in me, you have someone who will be a zealous advocate and very supportive of the nuclear industry. Because as Minister O'Regan, the Minister of Natural Resources, said, we don't get to net zero by 2050 with nuclear power. So you get someone, a representative and a party that are very supportive of nuclear power, investing in clean jobs and investing, exploring small modular reactors. The nuclear sector is very important to us, and I'm excited to see how we can support the sector going forward and partner with the local community to make sure we do that effectively.
I fully support nuclear power because it's powerful, clean, and reliable. I'd even like to expand on our nuclear power capabilities, including more small modular reactors. Since nuclear is so powerful, it takes up significantly less space than a wind or solar farm, reducing the negative impact on the environment. Nuclear energy is clean energy, made to pollute like it does a coal-burning power plant. And reliability is an important aspect because if we enter a cloudy period of weather or little to no wind, those methods of power generation come up short. We need to rely on other methods. So by expanding our nuclear generating, we can help the environment and ensure we don't have any potential power disruptions or have to buy electricity from elsewhere.
Well, the nuclear power industry is very important, especially to Huron Bruce. About 15% of Canada's electricity comes from nuclear power. Nuclear power is a great asset for our country, and we are privileged to have Bruce Power here. I and the PPC will fully support the nuclear energy sector without any threats to shut down or reduce nuclear energy. As a candidate, I will always listen to my constituents at Bruce Power and all constituents to ensure that I support the nuclear industry as much as possible.
Question 6. The overturning of Roe v. Wade in Texas has made it virtually impossible for women to have an abortion, even if the pregnancy is a result of rape or incest. What is your stance on a woman's right to choose and have autonomy over her own body and medical decisions?
Thank you for the important question. Since 2005, I have been a pro-life candidate and continue to support life. Thank you.
Well, this is an easy one. I 100% unequivocally support a woman's right to choose on what to do with her own body. Abortion access in Canada has long been settled. The Supreme Court of Canada weighed in the Mercantile decision and affirmed that a woman has the right to choose and that a woman has to have a right to safe access to abortion. Regrettably, the Conservative Party, with Ben Lobb as part of them, voted to further restrict a woman's right to choose in Parliament earlier this year. I won't do that. I will always fight against further criminalizing a woman's right to choose and make sure that this right is protected and respected by government. You can count on me to stand up for you.
The abortion issue is not one that can be answered in less than a minute or by myself alone. There are reasons supporting abortion and there are reasons supporting pro-life. What I can do is support and strengthen the lines of communication and try to reach some level of consensus between most of the groups involved. There will never be a conclusion on this issue, so long as government is the only one to decide a woman's right to choose or a woman's right to have autonomy over her own body and medical decisions.
Well, firstly, myself as a candidate, I believe that life is something that should be cherished, something that begins very early. But abortion hasn't been a ballot question for 30 years. Canadians have had the right to abortion for 30 years. Those who want to make any changes to abortion laws or the right to a woman's to actually decide what they want to do with their body, people who have been effective changing that are people that are changing women's minds, as opposed to changing their rights. And to me, that's the best way forward. Changing minds, not changing women's rights. We must ensure education, that people know what the consequences of their decisions before they are making them, as life should be something that is cherished.
I strongly believe in women's right to choose and have autonomy over their own body medical decisions. Women still can't access safe abortion services in many parts of our country in Canada. Women are often forced to drive for hours, wait 6 to 8 weeks, or even pay hundreds of dollars out of pocket to access abortion services. We need to make abortion and reproductive health care services accessible for all in this country, and I plan when I get to Ottawa to ensure that.
Question 7. The pandemic has increased the number of people in our communities who are struggling to find affordable homes and experiencing homelessness. How will you ensure the National Housing Strategy benefits people experiencing homelessness in Huron-Bruce?
So the Liberal government undertook the National Housing Strategy to do just that. We understand that there's chronic homelessness in Canada and that the affordability of homes is out of reach for many. So we took important steps with our National Housing Strategy, but we're going to go further than that. We're going to have programs such as the Rent-to-Own program. First-time homebuyers incentive will become more flexible. A home down payment savings plan, as well as building 1.4 million new units for people to own. This will lower the price for prospective buyers as well as people who need affordable rental housing. As your advocate and as your member of parliament, I'll make sure that the views of our small towns and communities and the needs of our small towns and farms and communities are represented at the table. So when government's allocating resources through these programs, Huron-Bruce will get its fair share. It's time for you to get your voice back in Ottawa, and with me, you'll get it.
Canada needs to return our focus to Canadians. This is especially important regarding affordable housing and food security. As our nation's population increases, so too does the demand for affordable housing. Our current efforts simply do not meet the unreasonable demand based on our municipalities by the Liberal government's immigration quotas. We must first better manage the flow of immigrants into our country, accepting only those individuals and their immediate families who economically benefit Canada. We need to focus our efforts on encouraging the development of affordably priced, smaller, and more energy-efficient homes. We should not be encouraging the construction of condominiums selling for $1 million when we cannot even meet the basic housing demands of those living in our riding, earning at or just above minimum wage.
The People's Party of Canada government will cool down the overheated housing market. Over the past decade, the federal government has spent billions of dollars and created various bureaucratic programs to presumably make houses more affordable, with zero results. Overall inflation has become a major problem in every sector of the economy, and as a consequence of inflation monetary policy, that is, the Bank of Canada printing too much money in order for Trudeau's government, in order to fund Trudeau's gigantic deficits. Housing is primarily a provincial or local responsibility. Ottawa's involvement over the years only resulted in distorting the housing market. There is nothing the federal government can do to change provincial or municipal zoning laws, but it can stop contributing to the overheating of the housing market in different ways. The People's Party of Canada government will modify the Bank of Canada's inflation target from 2% to 0%. This will cool down the inflation in all sectors, including housing.
In Canada, the federal government was a leader in national housing strategy in Canada back in the 90s. However, that was cut under the Liberal government. And the Harper government, when they came into power, just came the same. And with Trudeau, the homeless crisis has just quadrupled and gotten worse in Canada. The NTP plans to fund and build affordable housing and ensure those who are experiencing homelessness in Bruce and right across Canada are provided for affordable homes. Housing should be a right in a country as rich as Canada.
Thank you for the question. This has become a huge issue from Southampton all the way down to Exeter. the entire riding of Huron-Bruce and quite frankly across the country. In regards to affordable housing, I really believe that the Liberal government last 6 years has not supported rural communities and rural affordable housing. In the latest round of the Rapid Housing Initiative, basically all the money went to Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. It's unacceptable. We need to build here, we need to have applications approved, and we need to make sure that people who are living in our communities can live comfortably in our communities. In addition to that, we're going to encourage and incentivize developers, builders, investors to construct rental units across the country, but we'd love to see some in Huron-Bruce, and as well build 1 million new homes in Canada to get people living comfortably. Thank you.
Question 8. People in our communities are struggling to have enough income to pay for basic needs, such as housing, food, and bills. How will you ensure that the National Poverty Reduction Strategy has an impact on people's income levels and their ability to pay for the basics in Huron-Bruce?
In order to have an impact on people's income levels and their ability to pay for the basics, we must first stop taking money from Peter to pay Paul. We need to lower personal income tax, lower business tax, and eliminate carbon tax. We would not need a strategy to reduce national poverty if we did not, as a government, take so much money from the paychecks of Canadians to pay for wasteful government programs and the gluttony of foreign aid programs that do not serve humanitarian needs. I would, in essence, make daily life more affordable for Canadians by keeping more of their hard-earned dollars in their own hands to spend as they see fit. Canadians should not have to struggle to pay for necessities because the government has robbed them of so much of their wages. Government programs are a band-aid and not a long-term permanent solution. If you want Canadians to live better lives, you must return the wealth and power back to the people, the consumers.
Well, the two most effective ways to create wealth and prosperity are working more and working more productively. Ottawa should stop taking billions of dollars from the private sector and redistributing them through subsidies. It should instead lower taxes for all businesses and encourage saving and investment to make our economy more productive. The People's Party of Canada will stop using our taxes for political ends and make it simpler and fairer. We will cut personal income taxes, corporate taxes, and the personal gains tax after the deficit has been eliminated with the first mandate. Over the course of several budgets, as the fiscal room is found to allow it, allowing people in Huron-Bruce to have more money in their pockets for the basics.
Thank you very much for your question. Nearly half Canadians are $200 or less away from financial insolvency each month. Trudeau voted against pharmacare, against implementing dental care, against cell phone price cap. Our plan means taxing the ultra-rich and large corporations to pay their fair share in order for us to bring in pharmacare, saving families $500 a year, dental care at $1,240 a year, and also cell phone and internet bills at least $250 a year, and also giving up $20,000 of student debt. The NDP plans also to bring in UBI, a universal basic income, as we strongly believe that nobody should live in poverty. This is particularly important to the disability community and also seniors living in poverty.
It's a huge issue, from being able to afford your groceries. That's why we're going to implement a grocery store code of conduct that will protect consumers, producers, and processors. We've seen in the last few years, Weston's and Lobb laws were fined for price fixing on bread, a basic staple in humans' diet. And so we need to crack down on that. In addition to that, we also need to increase the housing supply. It's another huge issue. In addition to that, cell phone and internet. Every family needs to have access to high-speed internet and be able to afford their cell phone bill. And if we can't do that, we're kind of cheating our children's future. They need it, especially we've learned during the pandemic, to compete at school and to participate. So we need to reduce those bills, we need to reduce the grocery bills, and we need to find a way to produce more affordable housing for all Canadians. Thank you.
So I'm a strong advocate for poverty relief. I lived through it, and I have important experience as someone now in Parliament to have. Firstly, the Canada Child Benefit has pulled 435,000 children out of poverty, including over 10,000 families benefiting here in Huron-Bruce. Those are kids like I was that now have a real chance at success. But we're also going to go further and implement a $10 a day childcare system so that women, and mostly moms, of course, can get back to the workforce and participate in our economy. It also provides the best start for our children. This is needed relief that 8 out of 10 provinces and territories will now get to experience. Ontario, regrettably, has not yet signed on. But as the Member of Parliament for Huron-Bruce, I'll immediately get to work to bring Ontario on board. Ontario families need this relief, and I'll work to make sure they get it. Mayor O'Toole and the Conservatives pledge to rip up that progress if they get elected. We can't let them do that. Too much rides on that. Thank you.
Question 9. How will you ensure the national food policy for Canada will enable people to access and afford healthy food?
One of the ways the People's Party of Canada government will lower healthy food costs is through making dairy, poultry, and eggs more affordable. Supply management is a government-imposed cartel that keeps prices of dairy, poultry, and eggs artificially high through the control of production, the banning of imports, price fixing, and the prevention of competition in the market. Supply management negatively affects other sectors of the economy. Business in the food processing and food preparation sectors, like restaurants, are forced to pay more for basic products and therefore are less competitive. Although they account for only about 10% of Canadian farms, farmers under supply management will constitute one of the most influential lobbies in Ottawa. When Canada negotiates free trade agreements with other countries, protecting the system always ends up at the focus of the talks. According to the OECD, Canadian consumers had to pay $3.6 billion more every year between 2011 and 2015 for all products under supply management. A People's Party of Canada government will create a free, open, and fair system that will save Canadians billions of dollars annually and lower the prices they pay for these products, these health food products.
New Democrats will also work together with farmers and food producers to develop a national food policy. Making our food system stronger across the country includes food labeling and traceability so that Canadians can be confident in what they're purchasing to put on their family's plate. We will also work to put in place a food waste strategy to reduce the amount of food that currently goes to waste in Canada. I also, as previously mentioned, in terms of a strategy, is that ensuring that there's universal basic income for people who are poor, the disabled community, seniors who are poor, so that nobody lives in poverty and that everybody can access good quality food. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. A lot of the themes of affordability we've repeated during the debate here tonight, which is important. It shows where the needs are in our society. Just take, for example, what we talked about with grocery stores. Price fixing, implementing a code of conduct to reduce those bills. For national food strategy, we also have to make sure that agriculture is sustainable. And that's why the Conservative Party is asking, or not asking, but we will, if we're elected, we will reform the business risk management program to make sure those support programs for farmers are bankable, predictable, and transparent. And as well, there are tens of thousands of jobs that go unfilled in agriculture. We need to fill those. There are 30,000 unfilled jobs in meat processing, which is vital to the Ontario economy. We need to get those filled, and we need Canadians to fill them. We also need new Canadians to help fill those roles as well. Very important.
Being able to access and afford healthy food is a major hallmark of an anti-poverty reduction strategy. The Liberal government brought in the National Food Strategy and invested $134 million to make that happen. So what I would do going forward is be this advocate that our community needs to make sure that investment is brought to Huron-Bruce and Huron-Bruce gets its fair share. I've been speaking with meat farmers throughout Huron-Bruce that are a huge part of the solution in helping ensure that fresh, good food is available through food banks. And I commend you all for that support. But we need government stepping in to do more of the right thing. So as a member of Parliament, when those resources are being allocated, again, we'll make sure Huron-Bruce gets its fair share of that.
To ensure people have access and are able to afford healthy food, which is fresh and not processed, I would encourage all communities to have a community garden or multiple gardens where fruits and vegetables are grown by the community for the community. If anyone has any excess from his or her own gardens, to bring to the community garden so others can utilize that food. Also, by reducing taxes, people will be able to afford to buy meat products from the grocery store or butcher on a more regular basis. We can increase education regarding agriculture to show that there are many exciting jobs in that field for the younger generations to work in, causing an expansion. And finally, we can try to protect farmland from being developed by urban growth by trying to get those areas built up instead of out.
Question 10. What are your feelings on the COVID-19 vaccine and the vaccine passport?
I strongly believe in COVID-19 vaccinations and keeping all our communities in Huron-Bruce safe. Jamie Singh has called for vaccination of all federal workers and those who are also under a federal, like Crown corporations, in ensuring those workers are vaccinated. Also, Jagmeet Singh has asked for a national passport strategy and showing leadership on that, and that is what the NDP calls for.
Thank you for the question. Very important question. It's certainly hotly debated on news every night. Just so everybody knows out there, I am double vaccinated. I thought it was very important to be vaccinated. Obviously, I'm out in the community a lot, and I think it's important that obviously I don't get COVID, but I don't give it to somebody else. So that is the decision I've made. From a federal standpoint, from a federal regulation standpoint, what Aaron O'Toole and the Conservative Party is proposing, I think is a very good solution. For airports, airlines, and other federally regulated workplaces, we're asking for a proof of vaccination. If you don't have a proof of vaccination, what we're asking for is a negative rapid test. And I think that is a very good compromise for all Canadians.
My feelings about vaccines and vaccine passports are that they are crucial to us beating this pandemic once and for all. I myself am fully vaccinated, and every Liberal candidate and every Liberal volunteer that comes to your door through this election will be fully vaccinated. I challenge all the other candidates to make the same pledge. The federal government has played a huge role in procuring enough vaccines to make Canada the most vaccinated country in the world. Going forward, we would support provinces and territories in implementing vaccination passports so that we can finally move on from this pandemic, beat it once and for all, and tackle the other issues that are pressing and require our concern.
I am opposed to vaccine passports and the environment of coercion and unethical practices surrounding the experimental COVID vaccines. Any vaccine that is not first scientifically proven to eradicate, render relatively harmless a disease or virus should not be mandatory in any situation. It should be up to each individual if he or she wants to receive the vaccine or treatment and nothing beyond that. And an individual should have the right to discontinue additional vaccine boosters or treatments that the individual previously chose to take if they decide it is no longer beneficial to them. Everyone should be allowed to have access to informative peer-reviewed data that is clearly and concisely explained in a language that everyone can understand. No one should be subjected to unfair sanctions, denied access to medical care or services, or threatened with work termination because they stood up for their personal body autonomy and democratic right to choose.
One of the 4 principles of the PPC is personal freedom. Respecting one's freedom is everything. We believe vaccine passports are unconstitutional and create a 2-tiered society among Canadians. The PPC will protect those most at risk to COVID, advanced age seniors, and those with comorbidities. Both vaccinated and unvaccinated can get infected and transmit the virus, which negates the rationale to create segregation in our country and vaccine passports. We will repeal vaccine mandates and regular testing. We will repeal vaccine passports for travelers. We will oppose vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and other authoritarian measures imposed by provincial governments and support individuals and groups that challenge such measures in court. We will allow everyone else, other than the elderly and the comorbidities that are scared, to get on with their lives. Our Constitution gives every citizen a right to life, liberty, and security in this country. It's about time we honor our Constitution.
Question 11. Could the candidates please share their position on conversion therapy and how they would or have voted on this issue?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I'm against conversion therapy. I think it's an important practice. Conversion therapy has been banned in Ontario since 2015. It's been banned in BC and Nova Scotia since 2018. If elected, this Conservative government will present legislation to ban conversion therapy nationally. And I will support that legislation to make sure that we have a national ban on conversion therapy. Thank you for the important question.
So obviously I'm very much against conversion therapy and very much in support of criminalizing the barbaric practice. Regrettably, Ben Lobb voted against criminalizing conversion therapy, and in doing so, he broke from his leader and half of his own party. Ben Lobb will probably tell you that he's obviously against conversion therapy. If someone's really against something, they're going to take action to criminalize it when they can. Ben Lobb says that the bill didn't allow for parents to talk to their children about conversion therapy, and that's why he voted against it. As a lawyer, I've read the bill, and that's false. I would, of course, support banning conversion therapy, and I'll go beyond that. I'll be a strong ally for the LGBTQ+ community. I march in pride parades, and I'll always be accessible and available to that community. They need our support, and they need this cruel and unusual practice to be banned in Canadian law once and for all. Huron Bruce's representative should be ashamed of himself for not taking that action sooner.
I am opposed to conversion therapy in either direction. No one should be able to convert a child until he or she is 18 and the decision is made by the individual without coercion or intimidation. If a child has questions, those questions should be able to be discussed without fear of getting into legal trouble for just having a conversation, because how does one learn without asking questions?
I myself am against conversion therapy. It's that simple. Conversion therapy is not a practice that anyone should be treated with. The People's Party of Canada does not care who you sleep with. We care that you are Canadian. Your sexual orientation should never be a concern of a political party. We support your personal freedoms and desires as a Canadian, and have no business in your personal decisions, such as sexual orientation or your personal medical decisions. The government needs to stay out of Canadians' personal decisions.
So-called conversion therapy is human torture. Both the Liberals and Conservatives, including Ben Lobb, failed to protect the LGBTQ12S plus people from this inhumane practice. The NDP will immediately legislate a ban on conversion therapy, and as your elected member, I will obviously be supporting this motion.
Question 12. The pandemic has had a devastating impact on residents in long-term care, especially those living in for-profit facilities. Would your party support national standards for long-term care that would include mandatory unannounced inspections and a minimum ratio of resident to personal support worker?
During the COVID pandemic, we saw how poorly our seniors have been treated in long-term care facilities. The re-elected Liberal government will introduce a Safe Long-Term Care Act. By doing so, we'll ensure that personal support workers have a minimum wage of $25 an hour. We'll hire 50,000 personal support workers across the country, and we'll make sure that more spaces in long-term care are created. By passing this legislation, we'll ensure national standards. This issue also demonstrates how a Conservative government would have handled the pandemic, and what you can count on them for going forward. Doug Ford's government provincially promised an iron ring around long-term care homes, which proved to be more paper-thin than iron-like. A elected Liberal government will take real action to protect our loved ones, protect our seniors, and ensure they get to retire with dignity like they deserve.
Nursing care facilities had a lot more problems than the pandemic. It was thanks to the pandemic that ongoing years of abuse and neglect of residents were exposed. I would support national standards for long-term care, just as I support them for medical care. We need to support the hiring and training of more qualified workers for elder and end-of-life care in both private and government-owned facilities. While long-term care facilities fall under provincial jurisdiction, we must ensure that the quality of care and ethical treatment of residents have the same standards across our country. The way to achieve this, after establishing a national care strategy, is to not only inspect these facilities regularly, but to hold administrators and owners accountable when standards are not met. Higher standards mean more spending money. Additional funding for a national care strategy can be found in directly transferring GST revenues to the respective provinces into their healthcare budgets, penalizing facilities that fail to comply with regulations, and cutting wasteful government programs like foreign aid and state-led propaganda outlets.
Yes, the PPC would support improving the facilities for the vulnerable. The vast majority of COVID victims were elderly patients with comorbidities in nursing homes that governments failed to protect. The standard approach to the pandemic management has always been to protect the vulnerable and allow the rest of the healthy population to get on with their regular lives while building herd immunity. Lockdowns of entire populations were never a part of the pre-COVID pandemic planning. We will support emergency provincial measures to protect the most vulnerable, always.
Absolutely. And profit should never be the bottom line when it comes to our seniors. Canadians and people right here in Huron Bruce were horrified to see the conditions in our long-term care facilities during the pandemic. As you know, Trudeau voted against taking greed out of long-term care. He underfunded healthcare and prioritized protecting the profits of big corporations and their wealthy shareholders. It's time to take profit out of care of our most vulnerable loved ones. We'll end private for-profit long-term care and bring in long-term care homes under a public umbrella. Care guarantee for seniors, including national standards.
Thank you for the question, and this was really highlighted during the pandemic in the last 18 months. We know there are gaps in our long-term care facilities. That's why we're proposing to establish national best practices across the country. And I think it would be very wise for the government to also look around the world and see what is the absolute best, because we expect and demand that for our parents and grandparents as they age. The Conservative Party is also proposing a $3 billion long-term care infrastructure program over 3 years to help rebuild, renovate, and build facilities that are up to the current standards. And as far as labor, we know that we have a shortage of PSWs. We know we have 1 million people that will be out looking for jobs over the next few months. We will offer training programs to help people get retrained to become a PSW, as well as new Canadians. Any new Canadians want to get into the PSW field, we will fast track their applications. Thank you.
In the last 18 months, Canadians have been through the most frontal attacks on our freedom, prosperity, and our rights. It is time for the people of Huron Bruce to choose something different. Without the DPC, no one would be speaking out against lockdowns, vaccine passports, unsustainable mass immigration, online censorship, carbon taxes, debt and inflation, and globalism. I am prepared to become the voice of Huron Bruce in Ottawa and truly make a difference. Vote for your values this election and a party with common sense policies that put you and your family first. For more information, please visit peoplespartyofcanada.ca, because you won't see the fairness coverage from media. peoplespartyofcanada.ca. Read more about platforms and read more about a government that will put you and your family first and protect all Canadians first.
For too long, Canada has been voting for the lesser of the evils when it comes to election time, because many people end up detesting the party in power and then voting for the other party just to get them out and repeating the process over and over and over and over. Voting for lesser evil is still voting for evil. The party leader decides what he or she wants the party direction to go, and everyone either has to follow suit or risk being kicked out. For example, the Conservative Party kicked their Yukon candidate, Jonas Smith, out of the party because of his views on the COVID vaccine only 3 days before this current election, or the Liberal Party that kicked out Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott. As an independent candidate, I will never have to worry about having to toe the party line or risk my position, because I will only have you, the constituents, to answer to. And I will never have to try to spin a story to try to convince everyone that something is good, even if I don't think it is, or explain flip-flopping on a topic. Election reform, carbon tax, and reversing the order in council readily come to mind. I can be honest and give you my opinion without fear. How can a member of parliament who's supposed to be your voice in Ottawa do his or her job properly if there's risk that they might be kicked out of the party for wrong thing? I think that's a huge conflict at your expense. An independent has the flexibility that no one else has in fighting for the people, because while everyone else has to stick to their platform, I am able to get your feedback and fight for that. No more having Ottawa dictating to you. How many people want to pay more for gas and groceries? So why are we paying more? Because the parties believe in making things more expensive for everyone with their high spending and high taxes, the carbon tax as one small example. Now, if everyone goes out and votes for the platform that most aligns with their beliefs and no other reason, we can turn this country around so fast and pass along the joys that we knew growing up to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm James Rice, and again, I'm the Liberal candidate running to be your Member of Parliament here in beautiful Huron Bruce. I'm honored and privileged to share my vision for Canada with you and share the Liberal Party's positive vision to move forward for everyone. Canadians come to know that they can count on the Liberal Party to have their backs when things get tough. And we know that it's best to invest in Canadians. And Canada is at its best when we take care of each other. That's really what government should be doing. My background and experience gives me a perspective on a society that is just and inclusive for all, and empowering for all. For too long, we haven't had an effective representative here in Huron Bruce. We've had a member of the Conservative Party who's been content to sit on the sidelines and allow our community to be ignored. With me, that ends now. I'm a lawyer, my community becomes my client. I will always fight for you and always advocate for you when decisions are being made in Ottawa, so that we're at the front burner of when decisions and allocations of resources are being made. Silence is no longer an answer for inaction. With me, I will not be silenced, I will not be silent, and you will get results with me as your Member of Parliament. I'm an advocate, I will advocate and stand up for you. On September 20th, vote James Rice and the Liberal Party to keep Huron Bruce and keep Canada moving forward for everyone.
What a great evening and what a great debate. I would like to once again thank Kincardine and Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for hosting this unique and innovative 2021 way of doing debates. It is a first, and well done to everybody who put it all together. A new Conservative government will work with Canadians to build a better Canada, a more prosperous Canada. We will invest in rural infrastructure, water, sewer, roads, bridges, community centers, and high-speed internet to every household by 2025. We will take immediate action to hit the hardest hit sectors. We'll rebuild Main Street by assisting small business and provide incentives to invest in, rebuild, and start new businesses. We'll create opportunities in all sectors of the economy in all parts of the country. It is a plan to secure Canada's recovery from the pandemic, to get the economy back on track, to bring jobs back, and to get spending under control, to tackle high prices, especially home prices, and fight inflation, to get serious about mental health crisis and increase health transfers to provinces who deliver the vital primary frontline health care, to secure our independence from other countries for the things we need in an emergency, and strong support for nuclear, medical isotopes, and new innovation in small modular reactors. I look forward to tonight's debate. It was a wonderful debate, and on September 20th, I ask you to vote Ben Lobb, vote Conservative. Thank you.
Many people know me as an ardent supporter of public education, as a longtime school trustee and vice chair of the Blue Water District School Board. I will bring the same dedication and commitment to all the people of Huron Bruce and champion small towns and make rural Canada matter. Part of our NTP government, led by Jagmeet Singh, is focused on people and making life more affordable. This election is our chance to build a better future for everyone. A future with healthcare that puts you first, a future with good jobs, helps when you need it, and a future where your life is more affordable and the ultra-rich pay their fair share. A future where our communities can confront climate crises and win. A future where we take on long-standing inequalities that are hurting our country and end them. It's time to vote better. New Democrats like myself are ready to lead us forward together to rebuild better than ever and get results for our small towns and our rural and agricultural communities. Vote Jan Johnstone on September 20th. Thank you for your support. Your vote matters to me.
We would like to thank the candidates for joining us and for you for tuning in.
Be sure to get out and vote. Advance polls are open now, and have your voice heard on Election Day on September 20th, 2021.